All right, well, we'll get this thing started. Start with a cold opening joke of how do you tell a bike commuter when you see one? They'll tell you. So, by the way, I'm a bike commuter. So most of my career has been focused on non-motorized transportation when I was in the consulting business. I also was a chair of the Coeur d'Alene Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee for many years until recently. I took the job as city engineer and had to give up that position because it's in our code that I can't do both. So now I'm helping to make things happen anyway. So I'm just going to talk about the things that we've done in Coeur d'Alene to try to make things a walk and bike friendly community, and some of the things that I've learned along the way. And when I first put this presentation together, we were not a walk-friendly community by award anyway. We were honorable mention, but I was happy to revise this slide before the presentation when we got our bronze level status. One of the things that we have to help us with that is we have our own city trails coordinator, and he's really a ped bike coordinator, but he focuses a lot on trails too. Obviously his name is Monty McCulley, and I put that there because that's his ex-wife in the background that I'm covering up with a speech bubble. We have a pedestrian and bicycle advisory committee that has 15 members, monthly meetings, and then we have subcommittees that they break out depending on the needs at the time. Sometimes it's getting walk-friendly status, sometimes it's bike-friendly status, things like that. And that was one of our former members who was he represented people with disabilities, but he passed away a few years ago in a terrible ATV accident. Complete Streets we were one of the first, if not the first, to have a complete streets policy in Idaho. We crafted it based on 8 counties, and they were both passed about the same time. But we'd like to claim that we were first. And now we have an ordinance in process to strengthen that, to give it more teeth. And we've got this checklist that we're developing here. That would be required for any projects that come through to really make people think about all the aspects of pedestrians, bicyclists, transit, and there's a section on motor vehicles in there. Our Ped Bike Committee focuses a lot on education because that's where they can really help, and they've created a lot of public service announcements that are on the public channel and as well as on Facebook and things like that. And we also did this bike safety video with Mudgy and Millie, and this is the making of that video right there. Mudgy and Millie is a storybook that takes place in Coeur d'Alene for kids, and we got the Mudgy and Millie, which is the moose back here with the mouse on his antlers, to help us out with that video, and that was really fun to do. Other education, we've done this magnet that was on a lot of city vehicles, and it's still on a lot of city vehicles, but it's been a long time since we made those. We kind of ripped off the design from Sandpoint to make a pedestrian-friendly city sign to get people to yield as they come downtown. Feel free to rip it off from us too. It's modeled after our license plate too. This one here is a challenge. This is the Centennial Trail that runs through McEwen Park downtown. It is separated to have bicyclists on this side, pedestrians on this side. We created this sign that is posted frequently. People are walking on the bike side more than on the walk side. We're looking at putting some additional pavement markings in and things like that because people don't look up at signs, and I don't know why they're attracted to asphalt when they're walking, but they are. I think it's softer. Art in Motion, we created 2 walking loops and 2 bike loops for this Art in Motion, where it tours art pieces, public art pieces downtown, and we've got brochures to go along with it, as well as online. We have at that location that's shown. This is a screenshot from online, and it shows all the locations that these tours take you to. And when you're out there looking at the art pieces, there are QR codes. You can load it up on your phone and find out more information about the artists. Crosswalk flag program, no image available because this is a really hard thing to keep around. They were intended as a temporary first step to increase the safety of a crosswalk, but location is really critical. Don't put them near bars. People go home with them. So that's why I couldn't even find one of these racks of flags that was full to take a picture of it.
To go to Sandpoint tonight.
Yeah. RRFBs, the continuing saga. So I revised this slide a few times while I was putting this presentation together, because we have a lot of locations around Coeur d'Alene where we were putting these in. We got a federal grant for them. With the help of LTAC, we argued with FHWA for quite a long time about why they should let us keep our RRFBs or have them delivered once they rescinded approval. Luckily, they've approved them again, and we're waiting for our status, but we've installed, I think we have all 16 of them, or at least 15 of them in right now. And they are hugely popular. I'm going back to this freaking beacons. That was the front page of the paper. The press, Coeur d'Alene Press, interviewed me about it. I did not say freaking beacons, but that's what the headline was, because I was talking about how this particular beacon at the hospital, because there's so much going on, people aren't as aware of people crossing at that location. High visibility crosswalks is something that we're working on. This screenshot here from Google Street View shows this is kind of what we do. We have standard crosswalks where there's a stop sign or a signal located, and then you can see where we used to have it here, but now we're replacing them with a high visibility because drivers aren't as aware that someone's going to be crossing there. And this location over here is actually an RRFB at that location, and it is used so much that I'm afraid that it's going to wear out. Advanced yield markings are starting to get put in at some of our multi-lane crossings to prevent multiple threat crashes. And what I've learned on this one is that the size of those and the materials you use are pretty critical. MUTCD allows down to 12-inch size or up to 24-inch size. Our streets crew put them in at 12-inch size, and they're not as visible as I would like them to be. And then they wear off really fast because they're painted. So I would recommend thermoplastic to put these down so that they stay all the way through the summer and through the winter. Sidewalk repair program is something that we do. We have an annual budget. Our streets crews do the work themselves. The budget is just for concrete material, and we go out and do as much sidewalk repairs as we can in a year, and this is our crew working on one right now. And we also have a resident reimbursement program, so that if you voluntarily fix the sidewalk in front of your house, we provide up to $500 per street frontage or something equivalent to that to the homeowners to do it on their own. Not a whole lot of money, but it helps. I've written a traffic calming policy that's in draft form right now, and we have an annual budget for that, which is used for things like this speed feedback sign here, and talks about, the policy talks about a lot of the other tools we have in our toolbox to use. And one thing that I would stress is consistency on your traffic calming. So we have 3 of these neighborhood traffic circles. I'm sorry if I'm using the wrong screen there. We have 3 of these neighborhood traffic circles in Coeur d'Alene right now, and they were all installed before I came to work at the city, and they all had different intersection control on them. Some were yield, some were stop, and people were kind of confused by that. So the first thing we did was made them all yield control, every access, so they're operating like a roundabout. And now we're going through and having to put in things like these chevrons to tell people you're supposed to go around the roundabout, or the traffic, it's not a roundabout, it's a traffic circle. So that's helping to educate people as to how to operate these, because we were getting people who were turning right in front of them and causing some conflict issues. Raised intersections and crosswalks. The evolution of the design here was that our first ones were rather steep. Our emergency vehicles hated them. They caused some damage to them over time. We had pavers in the intersection. We're ripping those out and putting in concrete because the pavers just keep settling from all the pounding they're getting. And then this one is a unique one. I don't know of other places that have this. I'm sure there are, but this raised crosswalk is over 100 feet long, and in the summer between Memorial Day and Labor Day, it is closed to traffic. And so it connects two of our parks, and people just walk freely across there. And this traffic circle, there was one on each end that was put in just as a turnaround, so that when vehicles come up and realize it's closed, they can get out, don't have to back out of there. Transit shelters, most of our bus stops are just a sign. Some have benches. Now we're starting to get some more actual shelters in there. This one is unique to that corridor because it was kind of artistic and matched the pavement mark or the sidewalk patterns. This one is going in out on our Southeast Way project, and it was put in, this is actually made from some of the trees that were cut down on the project and then kiln dried by the contractor.
So those being put in with city funds only, or is that contributions as well?
It's the Urban Renewal Agency that's putting those in. And there aren't benches in this one yet because it's still under construction. That was a prototype they put up to see if we liked it. Our traffic signals, our new standard moving forward is pedestrian countdown, heads, and audible messages. And they also have this neat feature that if you're in the crosswalk when an emergency vehicle approaches, it says, emergency vehicle approaching, evacuate the crosswalk. So that's kind of a neat feature. Bicycle-friendly community. I'm running out of time here. So we got our bronze level in 2008. We're up to silver now and hope to be going to gold at some point. And we've got a long history of bicycle advocacy and use in Coeur d'Alene with this historic photo. Now we've got Ironman and the Coeur de Fondo and lots of events like that people really enjoy. We updated our Trails and Bikeways Master Plan this last year to include mountain bike trails in there now, and you can see the photo of that. And then we also added water trails for kayakers and stand-up paddleboarders because that's very popular now, and it is a Trails and Bikeways Master Plan. We added bike boulevards in there, and we also bolstered our design standards. And you can see our bicycle network has grown over the years, starting back in 1980 and then going all the way up to 2018, just shows how much we've added over the years to, and now our focus is on connectivity. We need to close those gaps as much as we can. The Centennial Trail, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the Centennial Trail, going from east of Coeur d'Alene, about 60 miles west to Spokane. It's a kind of the crown jewel of our trail system. It's about 12 feet wide in most places, 16 in others. The Prairie Trail kind of goes off diagonally through town there. Those are actually, the Centennial Trail and the Prairie Trail are actually my commute to work on most days when I'm not hauling 4 boys and a cello and a drum set to school. And then on our Centennial, or on the Prairie Trail, we actually put a crown section in it, so the slope sheds to both sides, and that's super helpful for wheelchair users because they're not fighting cross slope all the time. The wheelchairs will go up right onto the center line of the trail, and then they can use both hands equally. We've got a bunch more trails going in all the time. New developments keep putting them in. The US 95 trail put in by ITD is going to be replaced this year or next year, and we're going to take over control of that. We're putting in pieces of a commuter trail along Northwest Boulevard because not many people want to ride their bikes on Northwest Boulevard. This is a photo of Atlas Trail going underneath the Southeast Way and I-90, and then we've got plans for a couple more trails. Buffered bike lanes, we've added a few of these, and you'll notice a chip seal too. we chip sealed this project, and then we left the bike lanes unchipped for a smoother ride. And we've been putting in these 1 to 2 foot buffers on these higher speed, higher volume roads, and it's really helped with the comfort level. And then this is not a street right here. That is not how bad we stripe our streets. This is actually on our streets department yard, and this is where they clean the spray heads out. But this is to show, this is the camera that that the driver looks at to line himself up. And this is our painting guy here. He has figured out how to move the camera to line up on one line and then spray the head a foot or 2 feet over to widen bike lanes like he did here. And the idea is he just follows this and it sprays this new line. Over time, this old line will fade and we've got a wider bike lane. And we did probably 7 miles of that last year, just going around and widening bike lanes. We started a bicycle boulevard a few years ago, and it was intended to be a three-step process. Sorry, how much time do I have now? I lost track, so I'll hurry. It was a 3-step process, and first was signs and markings. This is not an example of what we would recommend, but this was our streets crew getting creative on fitting as many signs as they could on one post. But we've got shared lane markings and wayfinding signs and share the road. The next step was intersection control. We went to every intersection and added stop signs to make sure that vehicles weren't cutting across the bicycle boulevard. And then traffic calming was supposed to be the 3rd step, but I just did traffic counts recently, and there's only 200 cars a day, and they're all driving. The 85th percentile is under the speed limit. So I think things are working out pretty well for us there. This is an example of that wayfinding sign that we put it on the bike boulevard, but we've also got some limited wayfinding on some of our trails, and we're looking to do more citywide, and including the Celtice Way project that I'll get to in a minute. We've got a bike repair station that's right off the Centennial Trail. That was a generous donation from a few local groups. Bike share program. I hope that we're going to get one eventually. This one, you really need to reach out to the bike shops. They see it as a conflict of interest or competing against them because they rent bikes and they don't want us renting bikes too. And then some people think it's kind of a socialist activity and that we shouldn't be involved in those kinds of things. But we're hoping this year we'll have it. Our new traffic signals that we put in, we've got video cameras for detection. Because they can be moved. If you add a bike lane, shift traffic, whatever, they're not like the in-ground detection that it has to stay where it's at or costly to move. And these cameras detect bicyclists, they give them extra time, and coming soon is detection confirmation that shows. There's a little light that comes on when a bicyclist pulls up to let them know that they've been detected. And then we're going to be able to pull pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle traffic counts from those new traffic signals. We've got a bike signal coming soon if the developer ever gets to putting that in and extending that roadway. It was part of their agreement that there's it's the Prairie Trail, and it's going to cross diagonally through the intersection for bikes. They'll be detected, get the green light, and it'll hold traffic on all corners, and they'll be able to go right through. So hopefully in the next couple years that will be coming soon. Bus bike racks, most agencies have these, but there are only 2 racks on the front of the bus, which is a problem. You have to be prepared to leave your bike behind or ride yourself to your destination if there are 2 bikes on it when it pulls up, because our buses only run once an hour. Mountain bike park, we're getting started now, and I'm excited about this. This is US 95 coming across the Spokane River into Coeur d'Alene, and we've got plans for putting it. There's already a cyclocross trail there that is used for races, and we're adding a bunch of amenities to that. We have our recreation department has a Strider bike program to teach kids how to ride, which is how my kids learned to ride. Not through our parks program or our rec department, but and we also do bike rodeos at local events. This is our school mountain bike league. This is new this year. This is my son back here, and that's him in the race. You'll notice it's the Washington Bike League because we're barely in Idaho up there. And our first race was a 5.5-hour drive to Gig Harbor, but for some reason I was all about that and not about him joining soccer that would require the same travel. We have a couple advocacy groups in town, the Lake City Bicycle Collective and Bike CDA. They both have bike giveaways. Bike CDA gives away lights as well. And Lake City Bicycle Collective is actually in a city-owned building. We provided a space for them to do their business, and they fix up bikes, and they've given away hundreds of bikes. And that's my daughter and I donating my kids' old bikes when they outgrew them. Bike parking. So our Arts Commission funds bike racks like this, but you wouldn't know it's a bike rack, and nobody knows that it's a bike rack. They need to be functional, they need to be two-dimensional, people know how to use them. People have been yelled at for locking their bikes to things like this because they think that it's art and you're not supposed to, but it was intended as a bike rack. We've got a couple bike corrals. Challenge there is the number of events that we have downtown where they have to be moved, and then in winter they need to be stored, so we're working on a policy for that. Commercial businesses are required to put in bike racks when they redevelop, but they need to be usable. That's my bike right there, locked to a trailer at Home Depot because that is the bike rack behind all the trailers over there. And then most of our bike racks downtown are actually donated. We do fundraisers once in a while, and one of these ones here, I think it's this one, says the Biking Bosley's on it because we purchased that one, and it's at the beach by my house, so it's a very fitting place to have my own bike rack. Bike to Work Week has had mixed success. We used to have all these events, the kickoff ride, we had commuter challenge, we even had a fashion show one year. Always the weather was a problem. So we moved it to June, and people still weren't showing up. So last year we didn't do it, and then all of a sudden we got all these calls like, hey, what's going on for Bike to Work Week this year? So, and that's our mayor back there joining us for Bike to Work Week. And finally, this is our Celtice Way construction project, and this is where we had an opportunity to really put all these features in that we can. We've got the reduced speed limit. It used to be 45 out there. We reduced it to 35. We put a speed feedback sign in there to let people know when they're coming in from Post Falls that the speed is lower now. We've got buffered bike lanes that are going in with this project. This picture shows it under construction. It'll be done this summer. We've got a green bike lane going in across the entrance of a development where we expect a lot of traffic to go through. 12-foot shared use pass on both sides of the road. Wayfinding is going to be included at some point. It's not included in the project, but I'm going to find a way to get it in there because I've already designed it all. We've got the roundabouts to slow traffic as well, and they've got these chicanes coming into them to really slow people down. I actually got a complaint about how much you have to slow down when you got to slow down to like 20 miles an hour to get into those things. Like, bingo. High visibility crosswalks. All the crosswalks will be the high visibility crosswalks, and there are RFBs that are going in on all the multi-lane crossings to help stop vehicles. Those transit shelters that I showed that are made out of the trees that were cut down in the project will be put in at 5 locations along there. And then the center of each roundabout is going to have public art piece in it, which really isn't bike or ped friendly, but everybody likes it. So that's all I have, and I'll let...
See if you can find mine, will you?
Oh, yeah.
We just recently got electricity in Emmett.
Oh, there it is.
All right, there it is. Under a different title. Oops.
Whoops.
Here
Oh,
you go.
no.
Traffic by the system.
Purple.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure to be here. My name is Gordon Petrie. I have the honor of being the mayor of Emmett, Idaho. And today you're getting the tale of two cities. That was the best of times. You're now to hear about the worst of times, and I'm not kidding. That is basically my staff right there. So you can see we're not very big. We are an economically challenged town of about 6,700, and there's a series of reasons for the economic challenge. See that beautiful space there? That was created in 0405, and I had nothing to do with it. I have absolute immunity here. I was in Iraq at the time when that building burned down. It was just like the building there. But they left a big hole. Actually had a basement in it, full of water. And we already had a municipal pool, so we couldn't use it for that. So the owner of the building, who lives, I don't know, probably Gig Harbor, someplace like that, had absolutely no interest in fixing that space. And so the city just defaulted. We took it over and made it a nice space, and people actually like to walk there as a result. You're going to see why we're economically challenged here in the next couple of slides. That is our median income per household. That's the state's. It's $20,000 push. Big difference. Almost 60% of the students who attend the public schools in Emmett qualify for free or reduced lunches. And there's some reasons for this. Way back in 2001, we had a sawmill, Boise Cascade, employed a lot of people. And it worked round the clock. Well, it went away. And there was no plan B. So today, our school district is the biggest employer. If you live in a community where your school district is the largest employer, you may have some issues. So there are a couple of things that are exacerbating this challenge for us. First of all, and I'm just talking about Emmett. I'm not talking about Gem County, just Emmett. We have people with higher education. Just over 16% have a bachelor's degree or higher. Almost 20% don't even have a high school diploma. So the second pillar of our 5-year strategic plan is to create a health-conscious city. And there's a host of reasons for wanting to do that if you happen to be an official of a small town or a large town. You want to have a health-conscious city. This gives you some of the 2016 stats. We are a full click ahead of diabetes, but we're right in there on the BMI. But, oh, wait a minute. We're all overweight. This is our annual Fat Elvis eating contest that we have. No, I made that. I don't know. That, Perchetti, I think, oops, that's you on the right, isn't it?
You wish.
Yeah. This demonstrates just what we're fighting against, not in Emmett, not in Idaho, but in this nation. The Idaho obesity rates, kids, toddlers, 25% of our toddlers are overweight or obese. And by the time they get to the 3rd grade, you know, this is when you were always running around. You couldn't wait to get out of that classroom so you could go run around and be in somewhere on the playground. You know, apparently those days are over, because by the time they get to the 3rd grade, 30% are overweight or obese. In Idaho, 63% are overweight or obese. 63%. And CDC says that 40% of all U.S. adults are at least obese. So Emmett's very proud. We meet or beat those rates. You know that? So the solution was what? You got to get moving. I think that guy sleeps in the... No, wait, that's me. Never mind. So the solution was to get moving, and especially with our young people. So if our fifth pillar of our strategic plan was to create a city with adequate infrastructure for growth, and it is, it's just a plan. And if that photo right there represents the typical route to the middle school, and the middle school is where most of the kids either walk or bike. In fact, if you took the middle school kids, they would meet or beat both the high school and the grade school. Of course, in high school, you always take mom's car, right? And that does represent typical infrastructure. How in the world can we expect kids then to walk to school, especially in the wintertime? And you all know what it's like here. It's 7:30 in the morning, it's dark, and we send our kids to school in the dark. Well, that was really bothering me. So to paraphrase Joseph Welch, and Richetti and I remember these hearings in 1954 because it screwed up daytime television. There was no Howdy Doody, there was no Pinky Lee, My Friend Flippet was not on, it was just a bunch of talking heads. And what they were talking about, I don't know. But this guy said something really clever, I thought, and I paraphrased it. At long last, Emmett, have you no sense of decency? My conscience was aroused, and Richetti and I went to law school together, and we do have consciences, don't we? Yeah. We had to do something. Now, this is how we got to where we are. In Emmett, the property owners are responsible for maintaining the sidewalks. And in the United States, that's about 80% of the municipalities. Once they're put in, however they get put in, usually now it's the subdivision guy is going to put it in, the developer. Way back at the turn of the century, the city might have put them in, but once they're in, the property owner, the abutting property owner, is the one that's responsible. In those 20%, where that's not the case, it's almost always in a state that you do not have to have a balanced budget. As you know, in Idaho, we have to have a balanced budget. And so, oh yeah, property owner is going to help us out. And I thought that's kind of neat. What you were talking, Chris, what you were talking about, where you have the $500 rebate or whatever it is. Maybe I'll move to Coeur d'Alene. Richetti and I are from Lewiston, so
It's close.
and we were Idaho's first capital, Man, until it was steal the flag. So the previous three administrations did absolutely no enforcement. And I remember I'd gone to Emmett in '89 as the magistrate. And about 2 years in, I got this call from the mayor. He says, "This is Judge Petrie?" "Yes, sir." "This is Mayor so-and-so." "Yes, sir." "You gotta fix your sidewalk." "I do?" "Yeah." "Okay." And that was kind of the enforcement program. He was hitting the guys, the people that he knew would probably respond. And that was the closest to enforcement that his administration did. Well, everyone knows if you don't enforce something, there's not going to be any compliance. We're human beings. We take the easiest way, don't we? That's how we are put together. So, how do you fix this neglect? First of all, it was the city's neglect. And then the neglect of the citizens. Well, isn't it sad that in the 21st century we have to incentivize doing the right thing? Yeah, it kind of says something about us. And we had to build coalitions. We also had to satisfy the city council that staff knew what it was doing. And the mayor had to get some street cred, pun intended. We also had to get the offending property owners to yes. Well, we had a lot of things to do, and not a lot of time to do it in. We built on what we knew, and we learned some new things. The walking college, America Walks, and the walking college was probably the most important and strategic step that was a part of this. Because we needed to get from that to that. And that's the same play. That's what it looked like after it was repaired. So to incentivize doing the right thing, what we did was we got wholesale prices through the bidding process for all the property owners in the test corridor. The test corridor was, if you're familiar with Emmett, you know that we have actually 2 streetlights in town. And Washington is where you go in. That's actually Highway 52. It's part of the state system. And then Main Street. And those are the main commercial corridors. But Washington is a mixed commercial and residential. And so we thought this would be the perfect test corridor. Went to the service clubs, Kiwanis, Lions, Rotary, all those folks. We brought in experts, Looking Glass. God, where's Don? Is Don here? Yeah. Don came in. He came in for, it was a 2-day pop, and then you came back a couple months later for a day. And I will tell you, what outfit are you with now?
Chris and I were with Vitruvian planning.
Yes, yes. And anyway, it was an absolute eye opener, and you know, they don't judge you. They just say, okay, you really messed up, and this is how you fix it. And because of him, because of that process, we were able to fix a lot of things with almost no money. Just painting a line, for example. We found out we could actually squeeze those buses into places that we didn't know that they would squeeze to, and they still have room. So we were able to do things like that. We got the school. We got HOAs, Disabled American veterans, and of course local government, city staff, the rec district, that sort of thing. We had to satisfy the council, or this is how we satisfied the council, by showing that the bidding done for the wholesale prices worked. It was about a 30% reduction of what they would otherwise have to pay, and if they had to have paid a short haul fee in addition, it was a bigger savings than that. We also showed that we knew what we were doing by getting the majority of the property owners to yes in that test corridor. So, in summary, if you have a conscience about these sort of things and you put together a coalition and you come up with a plan of consistency, you can actually get some sidewalks that ultimately will be meeting ADA requirements. Now, here's some unabashed advertising. As I indicated, America Walks is a very important organization. I know you're all familiar with it, and they do lead the way in making America a great place to walk. Those are the things that they do. I happen to be able to serve on the board. Molly's back there. She's my mentor. Sometimes my mentor. No, she's a mentor. And together we can get people moving again, and hopefully, and I recognize hope is not a method. We can get people healthier. My daughter is a family doc in Emmett, and my son happens to be her PA, which is kind of an interesting arrangement. But she just flat told me, she says, Dad, obesity is what smoking was in the 50s and 60s. It's killing this nation. And I think she's probably right. Pretty sharp girl. So, we endeavor to make walking great. What you see there is our middle school that Don helped us get to more efficiently, and that is a rapid flashing beacon, and was put there because we have been lucky in Emmett. We haven't been very smart, but we've been lucky. And this was on Walk Your Student to School Day. That's taken at 8 o'clock in the morning. 8 o'clock in the morning, and look how dark it still is. Street lights are on, and that is a very busy street, one of the busier streets in Emmett, that's right in front of that middle school, and you know, parents offload their kids and load their kids. It's always a mess there. But that flashing beacon has really helped. And so that is the presentation. We have maybe 5 minutes, so you probably want to ask Chris a bunch of questions. Thank you. Go ahead, Chris. They want to ask
Or
a
you,
question.
I'm sure they've got questions for you.
Oh, okay.
Does anyone have any questions for either of us?
Whoa. Oh, well, I guess we did.
Yeah.
Was that sidewalk project in Emmett, was that an LID then? How did you fund it?
I'm sorry?
How did you fund the sidewalk?
Okay. This is how we did it. We went through and we got them to agree to do what they needed to do. But those that couldn't come up with the money up front, well, let me back up. There were 2 phases. We went through, and if all you had to do was be shaved or ground down to meet the requirement, that's all we did. If you actually had a portion that needed to be taken out and replaced, there were 2 ways we did it. You pay us right now the upfront, and when it's time to pay the contractors when they come through, you're taken care of. Or, if you can't pay it now, we're going to front you that money, and then you pay us back in no less than 3 installments. And if they did neither one, we went ahead and did the work, and then put the it's not technically, it's not a lien, but it's the moral equivalent, lien the property, and then the next cycle through on ad valorem taxation that takes the money and pays us. If we have to say mother may I to the commissioners, but because of the process that we utilize, that they've done that. Now, here's the sad part. As you know, 2 winters ago we had Snowmageddon. Emmett took a $350,000 hit for snow removal. Gosh, that wasn't in the budget. So we had to dig deep into our resources that would have been used for this next cycle of priming the pump. So what we're doing now is what money we have available with grants, which is very little at this point. We thought we had a really good shot at a $250,000 grant, but apparently some walking place in Moscow for the University of Idaho is more important than the sidewalk. Hey, I'm a vandal. What was more important than a sidewalk on a very busy street for elementary school kids. But we will crack that nut. We will crack that nut and figure out how to steal all the walking paths from the poor kids in Moscow walking home from downtown at 2 in the morning. Yes.
What percentage of your population chose to pick each one of the payment methods?
I'm sorry?
Which of the population that you did this with, what percentage chose to do each one of those?
Well, it was about 50-50 split in these areas where they would either pay up front or they would pay in installments.
So nobody ended up having to go to the taxation?
Oh, no. There was 5. But, good grief, it was, let's see, that's 2 miles. That's about 6 miles worth of sidewalk. So that ain't bad, is it? Yeah.
What was about the average cost for a house, to put sidewalk in front of your street?
It was around, I don't recall what the shaving was, because that was almost next to nothing. The average actually for what actually had to be replaced would have been around $2,000 or less. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. Because if, we weren't making you, okay, this is your sidewalk and it really looks crappy here and you got to fix that. So we're going to make you put in a new sidewalk. We didn't do that. It was just the portions that did not meet the standard had to be replaced.
And that was, so you put that out to contract?
Yeah.
Okay, because some places are doing it where if you got a block or something and 16 panels need to be replaced, property owner pay the material cost and the city crews put it in.
Yeah. Our city crews are not putting in. We actually had a contractor come in because we are one deep on everything, okay? And it's only been recently, in the last 7 years, that our city crews have actually gone from being maintainers to constructors.
Tough transition.
Can you explain, Mayor, too, on a couple of those of what you guys did to preserve the trees?
Oh, yes, we built around the trees. Now there were some that one that you saw. That tree was already out of there because it had died, and it was a danger to everybody. But we have a lot of trees, and a lot of them are London planes, or as you know them, sycamores. And it is a tree that has absolutely no business being around sidewalks at all, anywhere. And so what we will do is, if the property owner says go ahead, we will actually cut a root, the offending root, and leave the others in place, because that can be done and it doesn't ruin the tree, because I had it done. Or we will either go around that area or over that area, so that we can keep the tree. Trees are important to the town, and we're a Tree City, USA. But we do everything we can to save the tree, but those who, for whatever reason, when they get rid of an older tree, particularly the sycamores, we will show them what kind of a tree they really want to put in there that will serve the same function as the sycamores. Okay, we're done. Thank you.